Hello, everybody, and welcome. I've shared with you all many times that the individuals who are running these corporations are deeply unwell. And we're going to take a look at an article that illustrates that, and we are actually going to break this article down, and I'm going to show you why this mindset is so unhealthy and also what it's actually doing to us as people. The title of the article is Why Remote Work Makes People Less Productive and What to Do About It. I'm going to read the article straight through without editorializing, and then I will come back and we're actually going to go through piece by piece because there's a lot in here that we need to look at and that we need to talk about. I will leave timestamps for you for those who don't want to hear the straight through read. You'll be able to skip straight through to my commentary. Let's take a look at this article together. Why Remote Work Makes People Less Productive and What to Do About It. A behavioral scientist notes that working from home during coronavirus quarantine offers a privacy around what we're doing that could make us less accountable and less productive. Try these tactics to stay on track. So this article is by Kristen Berman. It might seem like the glorious era of remote work is upon us, driven by a pandemic push. Zoom, Slack, who needs the office? The promise of uncompromised productivity paired with freedom is alluring. I'm a behavioral scientist though, so color me skeptical. While software can ostensibly replicate the features of an office, there are some underlying behavioral tricks that physical offices have mastered. We may not want to discard them so quickly. Let's start in a not so obvious place, habits. People often complain that they can't start new habits. I have tried, but I just can't seem to blank. On average, Americans report having tried to lose weight 7 times in their lives. That's at least 6 failed attempts, maybe 7, to do something that they are highly motivated to do. The $9 billion self-help industry has made its fortune selling us solutions that help us achieve the simple goals we want to achieve. I'm here to tell you good news. There is a foolproof way for you to start a new habit, achieve your goals, and improve your life. Surprisingly, this system works across cultures. It's known to everyone. You've even tried it. It's called work. Work works. It gets us to do small things, show up on time, respond to boring emails, and big things, launch new products that never existed before. It helps us create habits and track progress. It allows us to learn hard things quickly. Do you ever hear your friends complaining that, I just can't muster up the energy to get my presentation done for tomorrow's meeting? I'm supposed to send this weekly update and I keep forgetting. I think I'll skip it. I told my team I'd deliver this project, but I think I'll ghost. These are just not things we typically say. Why are we productive machines in some domains like work, but fall flat on our faces in other domains like diet or meditation? We tend to take this incredibly salient productivity gap for granted. We assume it's all related to money. My work pays me to do work, so I do work. We assume it's the money that makes us highly productive, reliable, and consistent worker bees. But let's take a look at what work actually is. It's basically a giant group accountability system. We sit next to our team members every day from 9 to 5. We work on different tasks right next to each other. We have daily or weekly meetings that ask team members to report everything they did yesterday and will do today. We have team meetings with key stakeholders that require presentations to be prepped weeks in advance. We have progress trackers that send our status reports on the project timelines. We have shared deadlines that make us look bad if they're missed. We are part of quarterly and annual goals that are published to the company. We have performance reviews to ensure we hit these goals. But if we don't hit the goal, we debrief after it to change our strategy next time. The craziest thing, at almost every corporation worldwide, work looks like this. Regardless of culture or domain, most companies have agreed on this structure. David Liabson calls it private paternalism. Most people call it accountability. Work helps solve our self-control problems with incredibly effective accountability systems. What's at the root of this? At work, our behavior is public. Work makes our behavior visible to other people to help get us to get things done. Want to launch an incredibly complex product that requires building new innovations? Create a small team and commit to a public launch with aggressive timelines. This is what every tech startup in San Francisco does. Just look at Google's Developer Day or Apple's keynote launches. Apple committed to launch iOS 13 on June 3rd, 2019, and by golly, they did it. These are really just massive accountability systems that help employees to do something they said they would do. Personal goals are in the private sphere. In the private sphere, we struggle. In the public sphere, we understand there is an underlying norm about what should happen. I should show up to this meeting prepared. We self-regulate on the basis of anticipated consequences of going against that norm. Accountability is really just expecting you might have to justify your actions to others in relation to a pre-existing norm, and it works. Accountability systems, making behavior public, have been shown to work within voting, school attendance, hand washing, charity donation, and many other domains. In Ely, Iowa, voters were told that if they didn't vote, their names would be published in the newspaper. This drove voting rates up by 6.9%. A YMCA told their members how much their peers were going to the gym. Then they told these members that their attendance would be publicized next month. This increased attendance by 17% to 23%. When we know our behavior is in the public sphere, we anticipate what others will think, and we end up modifying our behavior. As office work moves to remote work, while the coronavirus continues to spread, work habits that were previously public will become more private. Is this a good thing? How will our productivity change? It's a nice idea to say that it won't. This is the popular opinion, but the reality is that the nature of work shifts as it moves from public to private. The very thing that allows us to be productive is changing. Meetings that once were in person will be on Zoom or online. People often keep their video on for the first 5 minutes and then they turn it off. This reduces accountability and may lead to more distraction. Workdays that were once coordinated and public, we all get in around 9 and say hello, will now be uncoordinated and private. This freedom may be glorious, but it reduces accountability and may lead to fewer hours worked. Deadlines like conferences and public PR launches have been canceled. This relieves the public pressure and delays a key motivator for getting stuff done. This reduces accountability and may increase procrastination. Here are 5 ways to stay on track. Keep video on for the whole meeting. If you're in person, you'd likely avoid checking email or surfing the web. Keep the same norms alive for remote meetings. This will also prevent the inevitable downfall of conference calls. Articulate and coordinate start and end times of the workday. This creates a norm for when people should be on. While working hours may feel implicit to your team, it should be re-articulated to ensure people are aligned in the new coronavirus quarantine era. As a bonus, this also helps people set boundaries on their work and not work late nights. Post public updates about daily or weekly progress. Engineers have operationalized this for years. It's called a daily stand-up, a 15-minute check-in to discuss blockers and the day's priorities. It may be time for non-engineers to jump on the bandwagon. An easy way to start is with a Slack or other messaging channel devoted to updates. Add more deadlines and decision points. We're all really good at procrastination, like really good, but there is a solution. Deadlines help drive action. They help us focus and avoid getting distracted by non-essential tasks. One easy hack: ensure meetings focus on making a decision. The meeting will become the deadline for teams to prepare their input. Group your meetings into blocks. Put meetings back to back instead of scattered throughout the day. Research says it will make you more productive because your blocks of time feel less scarce. This applies when in the office or not, but is especially important for work from home life since distractions may be higher. As the nature of work changes in the coming months, we should understand how to optimize work conditions. Work is something that ties us to other people in such an intricate way that we have no choice, or think we have no choice, but to achieve our goals. Work is just an elaborate accountability system. It's a proven system that has been shown to motivate us across domains and across cultures. In times of quarantine, but also for your personal goals in life, there's a very simple advice one should consider. Don't go it alone. Or if that's too hard, just act like someone is always watching you. And Kristen Berman co-founded Irrational Labs, a behavioral economics design company, with Dan Ariely, and was on the founding team for the behavioral economics group at Google. Okay? Guys, I can't make this stuff up. I couldn't make it up if I tried. Because there are even times when I'm talking to you guys about things that in the back of my mind, I'm hoping is not as common as I believe that it is. But then I read articles like this and I realize this is far more common. And it's starting to permeate into every single corporation, every single business. There are so many things wrong with this article. And we're actually going to take the time to go through it almost line by line. Let's break this article down. We're going to go high level and then we're actually going to kind of come down and go bit by bit. So my first and biggest issue with this article is that she's stating almost everything in it with the exception of one line towards the end as if it's an absolute and as if it's true. And the danger of this is she would be considered an expert. She's a behavioral scientist. She worked for Google. So people are going to listen to her. But the problem is, unless you're lacking humanity in some way, something in you should challenge this. The adult in you should challenge this. And we're going to get into that. So I actually took notes. It was that serious for this one. So that's first and foremost. She stated it as an absolute. Why remote work makes people less productive and what to do about it. That is simply not a true statement. To make it a truer statement, she should have said, why remote work may make some people less productive. That is a true statement because I'm sure that there are people who remote work makes them less productive. That's them. But there are also people who remote work makes them 10 times more productive. And it's those people that you don't want to hear from. It's those people whose voices you tend to drown out in favor of this. This is infantilization, and we are going to talk about that. She even basically confessed to that at one point in the article. We're going to get into it. The second major problem is that, as I was just talking about, she assumes that what's good for her is good for everybody, or should be good for everybody, not taking into account the varying natures of different people's work. Everybody's work is different. Some people's jobs are incredibly cerebral and they need that quiet time. We've talked about this before. I feel like this is like an ongoing battle and struggle. It gets pretty deep. I'm not going to go into the depths of it on this channel. Maybe I'll save that for a deeper PTE. But this is the struggle. It's like, oh man, it's like they're trying to force you into a certain way of being, even if that's not who or what you really are, and even if that's not what would be for the highest good of the business itself. Might not even be good for the business for you to be doing it that way. But they're determined to make everyone act and behave just like them. That's what narcissists do. And probably the biggest thing from an economic and business standpoint, all of this to me is an end result of not having real work to do. Because if you had real work to do, the real work would guide all of this. All of your fears, all of your concerns would be drowned out by the real work, the real deadlines, the real consequences that befall not meeting them. So, to me, it's almost not a pointless article, but it doesn't answer the major question, which is, what exactly are you doing? Are you just over there making stuff up? Because, then you don't really need a hard deadline if you're just making things up. People with real work to do have real deadlines. And if they miss them, they have real consequences. It's not a light thing. So let's get into it before I get too far ahead of myself. So let's break it down. We're going line by line. If you're looking for a very long stream, you found the one. So it says, it might seem like the glorious era of remote work is upon us, driven by a pandemic push. Zoom, Slack, who needs the office? The promise of uncompromised productivity paired with freedom is alluring. Yeah, it should be alluring to any independent, self-driven adult, right? But she said she's a behavioral scientist, so she's skeptical. Okay. It says, while software can ostensibly replicate the features of an office, there are some underlying behavioral tricks that physical offices have mastered. So they just told you they're trick masters, okay? They're tricks, okay? And I wrote off to the side here, why are you playing games with people? Why do you feel like you have to actually trick people? You have to trick people into doing their work? That sounds a lot like school to me. Teachers trying to trick students into doing their work? Why? Because the work is kind of pointless, maybe? An exercise in futility? And it doesn't naturally motivate because it's not actually tied to anything relevant or meaningful? Is that why you have to trick them? Why are you playing games? Or are you tricks? Then it says, we may not want to discard them so quickly. And I wrote, you may not have a choice. You don't get to decide. I love how these narcissists are bucking up against this virus. And trust me, I know that people have their thoughts, their opinions, and their theories regarding the whole thing. I have my own. I'm keeping them to myself. But one thing I know for sure is that viruses are real. Colds are real. Flus are real. So without regard to how you feel about this one, the other ones are real. And many of you have had them before. And so she says you may not want to discard them so quickly. Honey, you may not have a choice, because whether or not they get a grip on this current one, the old ones are still there. And I don't know how many people are going to be comfortable going into offices where their teammate, as you described later in the article, is sitting right next to them, shoulder to shoulder, coughing and hacking all over them. People are not going to tolerate that anymore. People are not going to stand for that, because in the back of their minds, they will always wonder, is this corona? Do you have that? Are you sure? You don't look good. Can you breathe? Like, people are going to be uncomfortable about it for a very, very long time. So you may not have a choice but to discard them or face lawsuits when you force your knowledge workers to come back and sit in these crowded open offices and somebody gets sick and dies. Face the lawsuit. Face the lawsuit that's coming with that. Face it. Just put some money to the side for all the lawsuits you're going to have when people start dropping dead because you're forcing them back in the office because you don't believe people can be productive outside of the office. And my thing is, it's not about belief. It either is or it isn't. If I hire someone to do payroll and we have an office, let's just pretend PTE was pro office. We have an office, my payroll person comes in, Corona hits, now my payroll person is working from home. As long as my payroll person is submitting accurate reports and everything is balancing out and people are getting their paychecks on time, to me, that is the output. That's the proof. I don't need to look at them. I don't need to see where they are. Did they get payroll out on time? If I request a certain report, does it come back and it's accurate? Can I trust their accounting? Versus if now my payroll person is working from home and their work starts to slip, I'm not going to automatically assume that's just because they're goofing off. Again, everybody is home right now. Hubby's home. The kids are home. Everyone's home right now. So they might have their reasons. The goal and the way to be non-narcissistic is you have to explore and figure out what's going on, what happened. You don't attempt to manipulate and trick employees to get them to do your work. That tells me that at a core level, you don't believe your work is worth doing because you know you have to trick people into doing it. If you have to micromanage it to this extent, it's not worth doing, obviously. So then she goes into this very odd explanation about habits. And I think the overall point that she was trying to, I put 3 question marks next to it's called work, because I think what she's trying to say is that work itself forces you into a habit. Yes, it does. And if you're not careful, it'll turn you into a drone and a robot. It surely will. But she's basically trying to say that the beauty of work is the work itself because it forces you to be an adult, basically is what she's trying to say. Let me not put words in her mouth. Let's just read through this very odd justification that's a little bit closer to gaslighting than not. Let's start in a not so obvious place. Habits, okay? People often complain that they can't start new habits. I have tried, but I just can't seem to blank. On average, Americans report having tried to lose weight 7 times in their lives. That's at least 6 failed attempts, maybe 7, to do something that they are highly motivated to do. The $9 billion self-help industry has made its fortune selling us solutions that help us achieve the simple goals we want to achieve. I'm here to tell you good news. There is a foolproof way for you to start a new habit, achieve your goals, and improve your life. Surprisingly, this system works across cultures. It's known to everyone. You even tried it. It's called work. So understand here that what she's basically said is that if you're having trouble starting any new habit, get a job, and then that will help you start and achieve whatever habit that you were struggling with. And if that's the case, why are there so many unhealthy American workers? Why are so many people on the job and unhealthy? What's the use and what's the need for all of these employee enrichment programs, employee fitness programs, and every year they're, walk this many steps and win a Fitbit type thing? Why would you need those if work itself was the motivator? If just having a job and going to work was motivational enough, everybody should be slim and trim and fit in this country. And it is actually the exact opposite. Why is that, Kristen? Why is that, Kristen? If work itself made people very good habit holders, we wouldn't see so many alcoholics, drug addicts, unhealthy people, high blood pressure, heart disease, you name it, anxiety, depression, you name it. We wouldn't see all of this in people if work generated good habits naturally. The only habit work does is put you in the habit of going to work. That's it. But let's keep going. I'm going to walk with you here. I'm going to walk with you. It says... Work works. It gets us to do small things, show up on time, respond to boring emails, and big things, launch new products that never existed before. It helps us create habits and track progress. It allows us to learn hard things quickly. Yeah, you know what else will do that for you, Kristen? Life. Life has a funny way of doing that. Life has a funny way of teaching you that if you don't do the small things, eventually they will come back to haunt you. And if you don't do big things, they will come back to haunt you. Life will teach you. Work is also a teacher, but work is not the only teacher, because here's my thing. If work is the thing that gets us to do small things and big things, how do children learn then? How will we ever teach children if they're not getting up, punching a clock, answering boring emails, showing up on time? I mean, you could say school, but unless the child has a car, they're heavily dependent on what time their parents get them to school. So you're basically saying that we can't learn to grow up until we get a job. So isn't that kind of the problem then? I was just talking about this the other day. You're waiting until people turn 18 to try to teach them these things. And you're trying to teach them at work. You're not their parents. You are not their parents. That should be my first conference that I go on tour with. You are not their parents. And hold those conferences for leaders and managers and development coaches. You are not their parents. You are not here to parent these people. There is a very simple contract in place. Hey, I need this thing done. I'm paying this much money to do this thing. Can you do this thing? Yes. Are you willing to do this thing? Yes. Are you willing to do this thing for this money? Yes. Okay, you're hired. And as long as you do this thing, I will pay you this money. And when you stop doing this thing, I'm going to investigate first to try to figure out why you stopped. But if you just stopped because you just, I don't feel like doing it anymore. I would hope that you would either resign or quit, or we're going to have a conversation. And then if it doesn't improve after our conversation, I'm going to have to let you go. Very simple. I'm not trying to teach you responsibility and accountability on the job. Once you've passed a certain age, this is why I advocate for that work program in grades 11 and 12 all across the country. Teach them then. Teach them when they're actually still kids. Then you can start to act like a parent on the job if your employees are 18 years old or younger. Actually, I'll say 17 or younger, because once you hit 18, you're a legal adult. That's when you teach the kids how to be responsible, show up on time, do things that kind of sort of suck but do contribute to the overall end goal. You don't teach that to 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds and 50-year-old grown men and women. This is where y'all are going wrong. You're not these people's parents, and I think you want to be. You want that. You love that. Something about that is very appealing to you. That controlling aspect. Oh, we're going to get into it. I'm getting ahead of myself, because y'all, it gets really deep here in a second. Then she says, do you ever hear your friends complaining that I just can't muster up the energy to get my presentation done for tomorrow's meeting? Yes, I've heard this before. You know where I've heard it? At work, on the job, in the office. I'm supposed to send this weekly update and I keep forgetting. I think I'll skip it. I've actually never heard any of my friends on the job say, I think I'll just skip one of my job responsibilities. We've never had that option. Perhaps some people actually have that option on the job to just skip something and just not do it and not get in trouble. But a lot of us actually have never had that option to just skip something and not do it. So, But if I ever heard the first part of it, I'm supposed to send this weekly update and I keep forgetting. Yeah, I've heard that at work, on the job, in the office. I told my team I'd deliver this project, but I think I'll ghost. Again, I don't know who you are or who you're working for, but my friends and I have never actually had the option to just ghost a project. And we've been pretty high up in companies before, and some of us still are. We don't have that option to just ghost a project. Do you? Interesting. But at any rate, if I heard anything remotely close to this, I heard it at work on the job. These are just not things we typically say. This whole section, I hope you go read this for yourself. It makes no sense. It's so bizarre. In the placement of the overall article, it has no connection whatsoever, but let's just keep going because we have more things to discuss. Oh, and one more thing. So going back to the real accountability, actual accountability, if these are people right here, I'm supposed to send this update. I keep forgetting. I think I'll skip it. I told my team I'll deliver this project, but I think I'll ghost. You are supposed to fire those people. You're supposed to let them go. The debate is not whether or not they would do it if they're in the office. If they're just deciding they're not doing work-related stuff and it has an impact, even if it doesn't have an impact, if it's something they agreed to that was assigned to them and they're not communicating as to why they can't get it done, they just decide, yeah, I'm just not going to do that. Okay, that's a different conversation that would need to be had even in the office. But they're trying to make this about remote work. These people are so controlling. They are melting down. They can't handle this, y'all. They cannot handle this, as you can see later on in the article. So here we go. It says, why are we productive machines in some domains like work, but fall flat on our faces in other domains like diet or meditation? Well, because work is heavily attached to your paycheck. Stop acting like you don't know that. Stop it. Please stop. You know that most people, there's a small percentage of people who would still go to work because they actually like it. And for those people, I'm actually very happy. That's what I want for everyone, really. Y'all know I believe in business, work, and industry. But what I really want is for people to have jobs that are where they're treated so well and the people are so fair with them and it's structured so well that even if they had to give up pay for a little bit, they might still go in because of the environment and because of the way that they've been treated. Not on anything cult-like either. I mean, like, man, my boss has been so good to me over these years. So good. And now my boss has hit a hard spot. You know, I'll pitch in to see if I can help them because they've been so good to me. They've been fair, honest. They've communicated clearly. Their expectations were clear. You know what I mean? They've never behaved in a narcissistic, greedy, or selfish way towards me. They've really kicked in a clutch before. So it's almost like you want to help them because they've been good to you. But you know most of these companies are exploitative. So it's kind of like people are only showing up for the check, and you know that. I swear these people are trying to behave like fraternities and sororities, aka cults. Sorry, guys. A lot of you do behave like cults. It's like, I want you to like me for me. And it's like, well, I do like you for you, but you're also paying for a very specific job. I'm here for the job. Okay? We tend to take this incredibly salient product. Okay, I need to do a sidebar real quick. If you want people to stop just showing up to your job for a paycheck, then you need to support UBI. You do. Because then people have a cushion behind them to where a lot of the work that they would be doing is essentially voluntary. People who can manage their money well. So if you want people to stop using you for a paycheck, even though it's not really using you, they are exchanging something with you. They're exchanging their time, their energy, their emotions, their talent, their skills for a paycheck. So it's not really using you, but you're looking at it like you're being used. So if you're tired of people using you for a paycheck, support UBI. And then you'll know, well, I know they're not here entirely for the money because they get money every month. So what other reasons are they here for? Do they really like me for me? And a lot of you aren't going to like the answer to that question. You're not, because you think like this. You think you have the right to treat adults like children and control them like you're their parents, and you don't. You do not. And that's why you get so much kickback and pushback from it. It's not natural. It says we tend to take this incredibly salient productivity gap for granted. We assume it's all related to money. My work pays me to do work, so I do work. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's one of the reasons. There are other intrinsic motivators that you didn't touch on that I'm very disappointed as a behavioral scientist you left those out. Some people are actually just really interested in the work that they do. They like the actual work. Like imagine being someone who designs robots and that's like your dream career. And you finally get a job with someone who designs robots. So yeah, you go to work for the paycheck, but the paycheck is probably secondary to the fact that you get to watch your robots come to life every day. Money isn't everything to everybody. My work pays me to do work, so I do work. We assume it's the money that makes us highly productive, reliable, and consistent worker bee. She called you a worker bee. She's telling you what she thinks you are. She called you a worker bee. But let's take a look at what work actually is. It's basically a giant group accountability system. And I wrote on my paper here, towards a common goal though. And what I feel like she's describing is group accountability for the sake of group accountability, which would be more like, ladies and gentlemen, a cult. A cult is demanding loyalty and accountability just for the sake of the cult, not for the sake of any end product. You're not manufacturing anything. You're not producing anything. You're not providing a service, a product, nothing. She's advocating for work's sake, giant group accountability system. But to what end though, Kristen? To what end? Toward what end? What are you making? What are you making? Nothing is probably going to be my answer. 9 times out of 10, you're not making anything. And that's why you're so distressed, because when you're engaging in artificial work, it's easy to do that in person because you can call a meeting and sit in a room and people can see that like, oh, they're having a meeting. They must be talking about something really good. Probably not. They're probably talking in circles. Then everyone's walking from the meeting and it looks like you're doing something. But in remote work, for the first time, you actually have to show the byproduct of all of your activity. And many of you don't have that much byproduct to show because you weren't really doing anything all day. You're coming to work for 40 hours a week when really, honestly, you probably only need to be there about 12. You only have about 12 hours worth of work to do. 3 hours a day, 4 days a week. That's the most amount of work you actually have to do. But because you have to make it appear that you're so productive, you fill your days with random activities, random meetings, stand-up meeting here, one-on-one there, group meeting here, touch base there. You have to do that because you know you don't have 40 hours worth of work. You know you don't. So then she says, let's take a look at what work actually is. It's basically a giant group accountability system. And also, guys, what she just described here is why a lot of companies cannot get anything done. So you only actually should be there 12 hours a week, but you're there for 40 because all of this crap that I just highlighted is taking up your time. It is, but let's talk. It says we sit next to our team members every day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We work on different tasks right next to each other. Do you have any idea how distracting that is? How incredibly distracting it is to listen to your coworker who's talking about something completely different carry on a full conversation with a client or another peer in another office somewhere on the phone. Then you have another coworker approach the coworker right next to you to talk about a project they're working on, and you're supposed to be able to focus through all of that. And as a behavioral scientist, I'm surprised that you don't know that that's not how the human mind works, unless you're wearing headphones or earbuds or, something to block out the sound and tune it out. Like you guys are living in a fantasy land. This is like a fantasy land. It's like a hellscape. Because to me, a true hellscape would not be fire and brimstone. To me, a true hellscape would be the appearance and the illusion that you're in heaven and you're actually in hell. Because at least with the fire and brimstone, you know where you are. But a real hellscape would be giving the illusion that you're in something good when you're really in something very, very bad and toxic. Daily meetings that ask team members to report everything they did yesterday and will do today. I know a lot of companies and a lot of teams do this, and it's only beneficial when the information is contributing to pushing something forward, as long as everyone's benefiting from the update. But usually what it is people just talking about what they did last night with their kids. 15, 20 minutes wasted every single day, and it honestly could be an email. all this email, all this Slack, and still they're forcing these daily meetings. But this can also be done online. It doesn't have to be done in person. We have team meetings with key stakeholders that require presentations to be prepped weeks in advance. This should have been done already. Okay, so you're remote. Okay, it still should have been done already. Like, unless you're using something at the office like a printer, a copier, a fax machine, a 3D printer, I could understand why being remote would throw a monkey wrench in that. But if you're just prepping a PowerPoint, honey, that should have been done already. Remote work should not have affected that. It should have been done. We have progress trackers that send out status reports and project timelines. Okay, that's normal. That can be done from home as well. All these project trackers are cloud-based. They're in the cloud. They're in the cloud for a reason. We have shared deadlines that make us look bad if they're missed. What does this make us look bad? Like, it's so childish. Do y'all hear the childishness? It makes me look bad. No, it's going to make you look fired if you keep missing these deadlines with no legitimate reason. It shouldn't be about looking bad to you. It should be about accomplishing the work. We are part of quarterly and annual goals that are published to the company. Okay. How does that change? Now you're working from home. How does that change? We have performance reviews to ensure we hit these goals. But if we don't hit the goal, we debrief after it to change our strategy next time. Yeah, okay. You know that you sharks and you psychopaths whop heads for this. Stop it. Stop acting like you're so nice. Y'all are not this nice. We debrief after it to change our strategy next time. No, you don't. You tell yourself a story and you run with it. It's typically what you do. Her overall point in providing this whole list is she's basically saying these are the things that we're missing out from working from home. And it's kind of like, not really though. Like, kind of, sort of, but not really. Almost everything you described, aside from sitting next to each other, shoulder to shoulder, is electronic. It's in the cloud. So what? You can't pull from the cloud? Or is this the resistance to technology coming out? Because technology frees us from this. Technology frees us from this, you guys. It frees us from this psychotic control grip that these people are trying to institute on us. Technology frees us and they cannot stand that. So let's keep going. It says the craziest thing at almost every corporation worldwide, work looks like this. Regardless of culture or domain, most companies have agreed on the structure. Yeah, and most companies look like corporate cults. Most companies are very, very cult-like. And these are the reasons why. I love how she's trying to like validate herself within her own article. Like, the craziest thing, everybody's doing it this way. Yeah, and look at most of them are flat on their face right now. Flat on their face right now from doing it this way and refusing to pivot and innovate and change with life. You couldn't operate without being face to face. Now look at you. And that's not a knock on everyone who might be out of work right now because you can't meet in person. Because I know that some industries, like if you bake cookies and sell them out of a storefront, I mean, obviously you can't do that right now. So it's not your fault. You can't virtually bake cookies and virtually eat them. But you know my point. You understand what I'm saying. So let's keep going. It says David Liapson calls it private paternalism. Most people call it accountability. So snarky. Oh my God, the snark and the arrogance. Work helps solve our self-control problems with incredibly effective accountability systems. No, it does not. If work helps solve self-control problems, you wouldn't need employee resource groups. And like the little anonymous call-in lines where people can call in if they have like drug problems, family problems. Work does not help solve those problems. If work helps solve self-control problems, why are y'all going out to happy hour almost every other night, drinking? If you were so happy, why do you need to drink so much? Why do you need to go to a happy hour if you're so happy? Work should solve all that for you, right? Sounds like work is a super pill. But I had to go look up this term here, private paternalism, and y'all, private paternalism, the commitment puzzle, and model-free equilibrium. Abstract. Paternalism is a policy that advances an individual's interests by restricting his or her freedom. In a setting with present biased agents, I characterize the scope of private paternalism, paternalism implemented by private institutions. Private paternalism arises from two channels: agents who seek commitment because they hold sophisticated beliefs about their present bias, and agents, naive or sophisticated, who use model-free forecasts to choose organizations that have a history of generating high-experience utility flows for their members. When naive consumers are common, private paternalism will be shrouded or hidden. Explaining why commitment mechanisms are typically shrouded in the labor market. Private paternalism has greater traction when production occurs in the formal sector instead of the informal or household sector, where monitors are not always present, able, or willing to implement socially efficient forcing mechanisms. So basically, you guys, private paternalism is basically behaving like your mother or father at work. That's a very, very, very simple and basic way to put it. Private paternalism is basically acting like your mommy or daddy at work. And this is the problem. This is why we can't get people to grow up in the United States. Then the way she wrote it, David Laibson calls it private paternalism. Most people call it accountability. In other words, yeah, I know that I'm really controlling you and acting like your mother, but I'm just calling it accountability. This would be toxic accountability. Work helps solve our self-control problems with incredibly effective accountability systems. If that were the case, we wouldn't have all these other issues in our society. So then also with so many people being out of work, we should see a rise in all the other problems, right? Since work is what was controlling us, right? Let's see. We'll see. It says work helps solve our self-control problems with incredibly effective accountability systems. You know what else helps do that? A lack of money. Like a lack of money will do that as well. Okay, so now she's going into basically the only reason that people get things done is because people can see them, like it's in a public sphere, right? And it's kind of insulting because it's basically saying that in the absence of someone watching me, I'm not going to do the right thing. So basically you're saying that your employees have no integrity. They have no integrity, no work ethic, no responsibility. And you also have no leadership skills and nothing that you're actually working towards. Just a bunch of fake people engaging in fake work all day long. For fake money, really, but we won't get into that. At work, our behavior is public. Work makes our behavior visible to other people to help us get things done. Want to launch an incredibly complex product that requires building new innovations? Create a small team and commit to a public launch with aggressive timelines. I mean, okay, that's fine. Yeah, probably easier to do if you can kind of meet up in a little conference room. But if you can't, I mean, that's what the internet is for. That's what they built it for. Use it. Pivot. Where's your creativity? This is what every tech startup in San Francisco does. Yep. And you know how many of them have actually gone up in flames? Flames running full speed ahead without thinking, without letting each other think, always up each other's butt. So many of them have gone up in flames because you're too aggressive. You don't believe in planning and patience and diligence. You actually don't really believe in life and how life actually works. I could get really deep with that, but I'm not going to. But many startups have gone up in flames because of mindsets like this. You're taking some of the best and most brilliant people on the planet and cramming them in these rooms, forcing them to act like children, forcing them to do silly things instead of applying that intelligence towards something meaningful. And that's why y'all go up in flames the way that you do. Just look at Google's Developer Day or Apple's keynote launches. Apple committed to iOS 13. By golly, they did it. These are really just massive accountability systems that help employees do something they said they would do. Yeah, you know what else helps? Being beholden to investors. So, like, if you just got $1 billion dumped into you, they want to see something happen with that. So, again, what are you working towards? Do you have a vision? Because vision solves a lot of these problems. The thing that I hired you for is the thing that I'm going to be looking for. I'm not looking for you per se. I'm looking for the output of what I hired you for. Hey, I like you. Thanks for working for me. I appreciate your work. But it's really your work that I'm interested in. Like, I like you as a person. Don't get me wrong. But I hired you for a reason. So I'm looking for that reason. And it's the reason that we should be focused on, not the person. But these people are psychos. Personal goals are in the private sphere. In the private sphere, we struggle. And this is true. That's not a true statement. But it's also that perhaps that person's private reasons aren't strong enough. But money is a very strong public reason, or private, whatever you want to call it. Take the money away. I guarantee these people will stop showing up to your organization. They don't like you that much, but you think they do, don't you? You're really convinced of that. You know what? I meant to do a video called Narcissists Are Really Prone to Flattery. And we know this, but what I never realized before is that they actually believe it. When you flatter a narc, they believe it. They can't hear that it's flattery. They can't hear that you're just puffing them up. They don't hear it. They hear the words and they're like, yeah, I am great, right? Yeah, I'm awesome. Yeah, this is awesome, right? Yeah, it's awesome. He said it was awesome. They have no ability to look beneath the surface. They cannot read subcontext, subtext, context clues. They can't do it. The only thing that's real to them is what's happening right in front of their face, or words that are spoken, but they can't see meaning behind words. They can't read tone. It's almost like they're not fully human, guys. We've come back to this over and over again. In the public sphere, we understand there is an underlying norm about what should happen. I should show up to this meeting prepared. We self-regulate on the basis of anticipated consequences of going against that norm. It's not a norm, it's a rule. I don't get it. Well, the norm is for me to get the paychecks out by Thursday night so people can get paid, but I just kind of let it slip by me so people won't get paid till Tuesday. Nah, baby girl. You let the paycheck slip? It's not a norm. It's an expectation of your job function. What are you talking about? I should show up to this meeting prepared? Is it your job to show up to the meeting prepared? What type of people are you working with? Accountability is really just expecting you might have to justify your actions to others in relation to a pre-existing norm, and it works. That's one of the oddest definitions of accountability I've ever heard. Accountability really is also simply taking responsibility for your actions. And accountable people don't always have someone to be accountable to. Sometimes they simply have to be accountable to themselves. So I think part of the problem we're seeing here is she's trying to project accountability outward, which yes, we are accountable to one another in different ways. Accountable to our customers, our coworkers, our families, friends, whatever. But your highest accountability is to yourself first. If you have no self-regulation, no self-accountability, you'll never be accountable to anyone else. So to say it's really just expecting you might have to justify your actions to others in relation to a pre-existing norm. So in other words, just expecting that you might have to follow the rules or explain why you didn't follow the rules. So you just do whatever you want then, is what I'm kind of pulling away from this. Like, what am I missing? Am I hearing this wrong? What do you guys think? What am I missing here? Expecting that you might have to justify your actions to others in relation to a pre-existing norm. So that means that you think that you might not have to justify them. So you just do whatever you want. Based on everything I've read, I should show up to this meeting prepared. I think I'll just ghost it. You just do whatever you want. And it doesn't sound like you get in trouble for it either, which is why you have such a tough time trusting that other people can hold themselves responsible and accountable in a remote work environment. Because basically what this woman is communicating, in my opinion, is that unless somebody is watching her, she's not going to do the right thing. And that to me is the difference between someone with true integrity and true work ethic and someone who fakes at it. Because only people who are fake or sneaky or, I don't know, mildly criminal have to be watched at all times in order to do the right thing. So in other words, if you worked, like say in a store that sells goods, and for a long time they didn't have security cameras. So for a long time you were stealing little things though. A banana here, a soda there, bag of chips here. You didn't care because you thought it was small, right? But then they installed the video cameras and you stopped stealing 100% because the cameras were there. So basically, without the cameras, you're a thief. With the cameras, you're not a thief. So guess what? In reality, you're a thief. That's what you really are. Because if it requires someone to be watching you for you to do the right thing, you're not a good person naturally. So it sounds to me like the managers who are very worried about this are probably not good people naturally. And or you've hired a bunch of people who are not good people naturally. They're not. Because if you have to watch somebody to make sure they don't do the wrong thing, then that means that they're going to do the wrong thing when you're not watching them. You see? So you need to work on how you hire people, or maybe you need to work on yourself. Let's talk about this right here. Accountability systems, making behavior public, has been shown to work within voting, school attendance, hand washing, charity donation, and many other domains. I would like to see her sources. In Ely, Iowa, voters were told that if they didn't vote, their names would be published in a newspaper. Is this legal? That seems like a real serious legal issue. It seems like shaming and bullying. Voting is a very private thing. There's a reason that they don't actually publish like who you voted for and things of that nature. So is that legal? I don't know. Then it says a YMCA told their members how much their peers were going to the gym. Then they told these members that their attendance would be publicized next month. So you're bullying and shaming is what you're doing. You're bullying and shaming people into working out. Is that legal? Can you do that? Seems like a major privacy issue to me. And once again, we're back to the presumption. Do you know why these people aren't working out? Maybe they have a reason they haven't been working out so much. You see? So you're basically advocating for bullying type tactics, shaming and bullying type tactics to make people do things. When in reality, it's the thing that probably needs to be fixed and not the person. When we know our behavior is in the public sphere, we anticipate what others will think and we end up modifying our behavior. Sure. Okay. I'm not going to entirely disagree with that, but in the context of how she's using it, meaning I'm only doing my work, not because I want to get paid and keep a job, but because I'm going to be afraid of what it looks like to others if I don't. I'm more afraid of the loss of the paycheck. I'm going to do the work, number one, because that's just who I am. But number two, I would actually like to see my money continue to come in. This is crazy to me. As office work moves to remote work while the coronavirus continues to spread, work habits that were previously public will become more private. Work habits like what? Work habits like what? Work habits that were previously public will become more private. Habits like what? Eating at your desk? Yeah, that'll become more private. People can eat in their house now, eat their food at their house. That'll be a little bit more private. Using the restroom will be a little bit more private for people now. If they're sick, that'll be a little bit more private now. They can cough and sneeze in their basement and not bother anybody else. That'll definitely be more private. I'm down. Gotta expound. Like work habits like what? Very, very strange. It's a nice idea to say that it won't. This is the popular opinion, but the reality is that the nature of work shifts as it moves from public to private. Yeah, it gets more productive, Kristen, because guess what? The very thing that allows us to be productive is changing. I would say the very thing that causes a lot of unproductivity is changing. But the presumption in this sentence, the very thing that allows us to be productive, how do you know that that's true for everybody? The workplace is actually an incredibly unproductive place for a lot of people. And unlike you, Kristen, I acknowledge that there are people who do perform better in the office. They have to get away from their house, their pets, their children, their spouse. They have to get in that office. They feel more focused in the office. And my opinion on that is Godspeed to them, more power to them. But you cannot then say that because it works for these people, it works for everybody. It does not. It doesn't. And study after study is proving that this open work environment, chaotic, he's on a bouncy ball, this person's on a razor scooter. You know what I mean? They're clicking beer mugs in this corner and shooting darts across the other, and you're trying to code? Come on. Would you take an exam? Why don't they administer the SATs and the ACTs and all the exams like that? When y'all are testing the children to death in schools, why don't y'all have some of the children playing video games in the corner? Another group of children is coloring in the back corner. When you finish, go play hopscotch in the classroom. Why don't y'all allow that when the kids are testing? Why? Because they have to focus, right? Focus is very important, right? So what makes you think that a busy office like this allows people to be more productive? It might allow you to be more productive, but it doesn't allow a good majority. And that's the problem. There's a lot of presumption built in. Meetings that were once in person will be on Zoom or online. People often keep their video on for the first 5 minutes, then they turn it off. Yeah, because they're humans and they're adults. And nobody wants to be stared at. Nobody wants to be stared at. A lot of people don't like the way their faces look in cameras. And Zoom and Slack and Google and all y'all, if you're listening, please stop flipping the image. So a lot of cameras flip the image for it to be a real life view of that person. So what I mean is, if you were to look in your cell phone right now, I know iPhones do this. If you take a selfie with your iPhone, it flips the image to be a quote unquote real image because that's how people are actually seeing you. Because you look at yourself basically from right to left? I don't know. And people look at you from left to right or vice versa. So when it flips, it looks totally different to you. And for a lot of people, that's very unnerving because that's not how they're used to seeing their face. They're used to seeing the mirror image of their face. So to see their face in real time, they don't like it. A lot of people are aging. They don't like how they look in the camera. You cannot do this to people. A lot of people don't want you to see their home or the background of their home. They don't want you to see where they live. You don't need to see where I live. It's a privacy issue. God, I hope the privacy advocates get on this. You can't force this on people, man. There's a million different reasons. What if they have an alcoholic boyfriend or girlfriend in the background that they've been very good at concealing because at work they're professional, they put on a professional face, they don't bring their private issues to work. You would never know that they're going through that. And they want to leave their camera off because they know that they can't control this person walking around in the background. You cannot force this on people. You can't. You deserve to lose employees when you do force this on people because you are not thinking. Your HR department is useless if you guys aren't catching this. This reduces accountability and may lead to more distraction. How do you know? How can you make such an absolute statement? This reduces accountability and may lead to more distraction. You don't know that. It might actually increase accountability because now they're paying attention because now they're not worried about how their face looks. Like, okay, God, no one's staring at my face today. And you would say, well, what difference does it make when you're in person? It makes a huge difference because at least in person, you know that you're not getting a screenshot taken of your face. Look how many screenshots have surfaced since everyone started working from home. How do you know all those people want their faces floating around the internet like that? At least in person, I can see when you're taking a picture of me. People should have a right to whether or not they share their face with you. I'm sorry. It's a private and intimate thing. It's you. And everyone doesn't want themselves broadcast across technology like that. That's just my personal opinion. Mainly also because it's just it's a means of control. If this person is not submitting their work and they seem distracted and their camera is off, you need to talk to them. Demanding their camera come on is not going to change anything. They're either an accountable person or they're not. Workdays that were once coordinated in public, we'll get in around 9 a.m. and say hello, will now be uncoordinated and private. So basically, if you say hello to your coworker on Slack, it makes her sad because she wanted to see it in public. She wanted to see the hello and the greeting out in public. This freedom may be glorious, but it reduces accountability and may lead to fewer hours work. That was the first time I've ever seen her use the word may this whole entire time. It may lead to fewer hours worked. Yeah, it might, but it also might not. What about the reverse? There is a reverse here. What about the people who are getting more done than ever gotten done in their working history because they're working from home? Deadlines like conferences and public PR launches have been canceled. Okay. Do you have anything else to work on? This relieves the public pressure and delays a key motivator for getting stuff done. Not really. Like, you can't get it done. It's been canceled due to a virus. This reduces accountability and may increase procrastination. Hey, we got a second May. All right. But here we go with the absolutes again. This reduces accountability. No, it doesn't. Your virus reduced accountability, honey. The virus eliminated accountability for a lot of people. This article is all over the place. I hope you guys are seeing that. The lack of cohesion in thought. I hope you can see that. Then she gives us advice. God help us all. Here are 5 ways to stay on track. Keep video on for the whole meeting. Honey, these are grown adult men and women sitting in their houses. You don't know what's going on in their house. And if I were an adult and I had the ability to do this, I would say, listen, Kristen, I'm sorry I can't turn my camera on for you, but here's the information that you're looking for. Because it's just ridiculous. These aren't kids. And even with kids, they're trying to pass laws around that because bullying is so bad. Kids don't want you to see their house and how they're living. This needs to be optional. It's optional. You're adults. Unless you make like commercials. I don't know. Unless you are a face and a talent and they use your face to make things, there's no need for me to have to share my face with you. What you need is my voice. That's fair. I think that is fair. Articulate and coordinate start and end times of the workday. So y'all didn't have working hours before? You suddenly have to redraft working hours? This tells me you're not working on anything. You're not doing anything because you don't have a reason for it. If you're just randomly willy-nilly showing up whenever, leaving whenever, you probably aren't really working on anything like that. Post public updates about daily or weekly progress. So, I mean, once again, is your company just falling apart because you went remote? And if so, that tells me, like, what were you doing before? Add more deadlines and decision points. How can you add more deadlines? I mean, go for it, but now we're entering into micromanagement territory. It's due on this specific date. Yes, we can do project tracking. That's very common in project management. Yes, let's do good, healthy project management like we were doing before, right? Weren't we doing project management before all this? So why aren't we doing it now? We're all really good at procrastination, like really good. But there's a solution. Deadlines help drive action. You think? They help us focus and avoid getting distracted by non-essential tasks. But you just told us that you come to the water cooler every morning to say hello. Where is it? It's somewhere up here. Oh, we all get in around 9 a.m. and say hello. There's your daily distraction right there, Kristen. That's why you feel like you're procrastinating, because you're so busy doing all this other stuff. All this up here. That's why you can't get anything done. It's all this right here, honey. All this is getting eliminated by people working from home plus a commute. It's not that hard. I think one of my overall points is that this business is not this hard, guys. It's not hard. It's actually relatively simple. It's very simple. People like this complicate it. If you have to tell an adult to update people on what's going on, coordinate, keep the deadlines, don't lose your deadlines and decision points, that's a group of adults who already didn't know what they were doing and probably head up by a leader that doesn't know what they're doing. Group your meetings into blocks. This is the one thing I actually agree with her on. Put meetings back to back instead of scattered throughout the day. Research says it'll make you more productive because your blocks of time feel less scarce. That is actually correct. I actually agree with her about that. But this should have been happening prior to you going remote. Some companies who are actually intelligent and have really just pushed the edge as far as trying something new, put all their meetings on one day. So we do all our meetings on Mondays, leaving Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday free for people to actually work. Then Mondays are for the updates, the touch bases, you know what I mean? But what they typically do, for those who aren't aware, is they just have meetings scattered all throughout every day. So you'll have a meeting at 9:30, 1, 3:30, and 4 on Monday. Then you'll have a meeting at 1:30, 2, 5 o'clock on Tuesday. Then you'll have it just scattered. I don't see how anyone can work like that. So I actually agree with her on that. In times of quarantine, but also for your personal goals in life, there is very simple advice one should consider. Don't go it alone. Or if that's too hard, just act like someone is always watching you. Now, if that doesn't creep you out, and if that doesn't give you a good look into the mindset and the positioning of how these people think and what they think about you, I don't know what will. I don't know how else to illustrate this. I don't know how else to point out to you that this is not the way. We are adults. And adults work off of accountability and expectations in terms of, if you don't do this thing, either you won't get paid or you won't be working here anymore. And I'm not talking about those situations where something unethical is happening and they're asking you to do something unethical. I'm talking about the situations where the job description has been laid out, you've been hired for that job description, and you are paid based on your performance to that job description. And it's really just that simple. If you decide you're not going to live up to that job description anymore, either we need to put you somewhere else, or we need to relieve you from the team, or you need to relieve yourself. Life is simple. Who has time for all of this? Who needs to be told this other than the video on for the whole meeting? Tell each other when you start and stop. Give us daily updates. Do more deadlines. Put your meetings into blocks. Like, this is not profound. You don't have to be a genius to come up with these ideas, guys. It's really common sense. But I'm starting to understand that the reason that these people don't have common sense is because people believe that private paternalism is the way. So if someone spends your adult life, if you spend your whole career with other people thinking for you and restricting your freedom because they think that that's the way to teach you things, then you grow up to be a person who does not know how to think. You can't think critically. You can't think constructively. You can't think for yourself. You are completely infantilized. And in the current context of what we're going through right now, I'm very concerned about that. I'm very concerned about your willingness to be infantilized as well. And I'm very concerned about your inability to recognize it when it's happening. They've been patronizing you guys for a long time. And many of you have gone right along with it, especially my generation. I'm so disappointed in you. But part of the reason it's happened is because many people don't recognize it and you accept it as normal. And part of what I believe my job is to help you recognize that this is not normal, guys. It's not normal and it's not healthy. So you guys, I hope this was enlightening. I hope it was informative. I'm going to leave a link to both of these articles in the description box for you. I think it's time for our world to change. I think a lot of outside circumstances are going to change our world, whether we like it or not. And people like this are going to have such a hard time when life itself forces them to let go of the control and the stranglehold that they've had on people for so long. Life is going to force you to let go. And I don't think a lot of them are going to take it very well. I think we'll see a lot of very physical meltdowns from these people when they recognize that you can't do this to people anymore, and you can't even legislate your way out of it, because to do so is to put people's very lives at risk. So it goes to show you who really cares about life and who doesn't it? Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for watching. And we will come back again very soon. I've enjoyed chatting with you, and I hope you all are staying safe and healthy. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.